for real, we don't know how to act. Yeah, I'm pointing out facts. If I point a finger, that's point of attack. Good point, who's next? Flag on the plate, now I'm causing them death. We bet on ourselves, so what you expect? A die-hard fan, never live with regret. Yes, sir. Go to my neck. Burgundy flex. Who wants the smoke? We bringing it home. Be my guest. Look how we step. Who we got next? Step on the right, step on the left. Who do we rep? Commanders. Where's my soldiers? Right side. Commanders. Where's my soldiers? Left side. Commanders. Where's my soldiers? Watch the middle. Commanders. Where's my soldiers? High off the way that this sound, they turn up as soon as they feet hit the ground. I am not playing around. I hit them, I bet that they feeling me now.
Welcome, one and all across the nation and around the world. I welcome you all to episode 13 of the Commanders Gridiron Report. I am your host, Drew Willingham, and we are back for another, well, I would usually say great episode, but in this case, we got a lot to talk about, and it's not all good when it comes to the Commanders. But this show today is brought to you, as always, by Sertoba Media, presented by Sertoba Media, in association with A7BN Sports, as we are on their Facebook page with this program today, as well as the previous 12 episodes, and as well as Team MBS Media. Thank you guys, as always, for tuning in, whether it's through Sertoba Media, A7BN Sports, or Team MBS Media. Definitely look forward to bringing you another great one today. And with that being said, we have to take this into the 1st and 10 to get this thing started.
They are the Washington Commanders. New name, new marks, new uniform.
Soldiers, are we ready for Operation Burgundy Flag?
And here with the 1st and 10, we got to talk about Jack Del Rio getting his walking papers after that previous game on Thanksgiving. And with that being said, let's look at that score. Whoop, that was the wrong one. That was from last week. My apologies. This one right here, 45-10, as they were in Jerry World last week, losing by 35 points. That is 5 touchdowns if you're keeping up with the trajectory of how things are scored here in the NFL. When you look at this score right here, and you kind of can't blame Ron Rivera for asking Jack Del Rio to take a step aside for the remainder of the season when it comes to how things are going over there for the Commanders. I mean, it definitely was a dumpster fire of a game to watch. Jack Del Rio, after 5 seasons, no longer, well, 4 seasons, my apologies, 4 seasons with the team, 3.5 if you want to get technical, is being relieved at age 60. I don't know if Jack Del Rio is going to get any other offers to be a coach anywhere else in the league when it comes to what he did as a defensive coordinator for this team this year. It definitely was not a pretty sight this year, and definitely something that Commanders fans are looking forward to turning the page on, and hopefully with Ron Rivera and his other assistants taking over the play calling duties for the defensive side, we may see some type of spark in this defense for the remainder of the year, because they've had some flashes in the past overall this season. They've looked pretty good at points. Now, of course, that was before they traded Montez Sweat and Chase Young, but we'll get to that at another time. But Jack Del Rio, in his 4 seasons, lackluster performances as a defensive coordinator, which is why after a 5-touchdown loss, you have to say it was time for him to go. And you can't get upset about that. I am not upset about that whatsoever. Looking at how this team performed throughout this year, you have to say, Jack Del Rio, it was time for you to go. And I'm definitely not mad about that. With that being the 1st and 10, basically covering the score, 45-10. It's hard to say that over and over again, but it just really was one wild game when it came to that Thanksgiving Day game. Let me know here in the comments, guys, what your opinions are. Was it a little too soon? Was it too late? Was it time for Jack Del Rio to go? I say it was time for him to go. Let's see what you guys say here in the comments. Old Mickey Delaney's here and says, "Hi, my brother. Laughing my fathering blank off." I'll try to keep it PG rated for this today. Drew, what are the Commanders Real Commanders. I don't know. It seems like you asked the question and then answered it right there at the same time. You let me know what the answer is or what the actual full-on question is there, Mick. Let me know. We'll see. We'll get back to that one. But here for the 1st and 10, the biggest news that we have on this episode, of course, something we heard about 3 days ago. But again, the Commanders Gridiron Report is on Mondays, so I had to stick with the original plan of having it on Monday because of scheduling and all that and whatnot. But here for the 1st and 10, Jack Del Rio, walking papers. There it is. And that is all we got for that one. Let's go and take it into the Burgundy Flex review. See what we got in store for you on that one.
Go to my neck, Burgundy flex. Who wants the smoke? We bringing it home. Be like that.
And here for the Burgundy Flex review, a look at the highlights from the Week 12 contest. And you're looking at it right here as these two right here, Deron Bland and Dak Prescott, definitely toast their turduckens right there. It's something that we have not seen for Washington, since Kirk Cousins did it right before he left for Minnesota. So it's been several years since the Commanders have actually had something like that, a moment like that on Thanksgiving Day. And you have to look back on their play in this game on Thanksgiving to really dictate how that was going to happen, okay? So right here in that game, you had Dak Prescott doing the things that he did, but the biggest thing I would have to say that probably hurt the Commanders was, again, their rushing attack. Their rushing attack has been very lackluster throughout this year. It has not been good at all. And when you look at what they've done throughout this year, I mean, they're averaging like anywhere from 30 to 50 yards a game. And when you have your running backs averaging 30 to 50 or less as your lead runner, and you're not getting much on the ground. I mean, the week before, we saw a pretty big difference of how they're playing in the week before when they played the Seahawks to now when they're playing the Cowboys, okay? And Rob Johnson was on here last week and made some really good predictions and really good calls, and those things came into fruition in this game and for his team, that being the Cowboys, which is why he was on last week's episode. If you haven't seen it yet, go back, check it out after you see this episode here. But for episode 13, Burgundy Flex Review, looking at this game right here on Thanksgiving. When you see numbers like Brian Robinson, 15 carries for 53 yards. When you see Tony Pollard on the other side doing 13 carries for 79 yards and a touchdown. Less carries, more production, and got a score involved in that as well. When you see the receivers, Curtis Samuel definitely did a really good job for the Commanders, having 9 receptions, 100 yards. But, of course, all they could put up was 10 points on the day. And that didn't come from Sam Howell passing. And it definitely didn't come from Curtis Samuel. It came mainly on a scoring play from Sam Howell, as a matter of fact, rushing for 2 attempts, 13 yards, and had that 1 touchdown run to take it to where they didn't at least finish this game with only a field goal. It was definitely not a pretty sight. But looking throughout this situation right here and looking throughout, the first quarter, it was only a 7-0 game at the end of this first quarter. It wasn't like something that they ran away with early on. Going into halftime, it was still a pretty close game. It was 20-10. The Cowboys were up. It was only the closest that we came as far as the score was when it was 7-3. When the Joey Slye kicked the field goal and it was 7-3 Cowboys. Then Brandon Cooks at the 31-yard pass caught from Dak Prescott to make it a 14-3 game upon Brandon Aubrey's field goal extra point. Then Sam Howell had the 1-yard touchdown game, which brought us back to within that 4-point deficit, 14-10. And from that point forward, the Cowboys, once the second half started, they kind of ran away with it in the fourth quarter. Going through into halftime, it was 20-10 based off Tony Pollard's 7-yard rushing touchdown. And then we went to the third quarter coming in from halftime, and then it was quiet. There wasn't much going on. It was still 20-10 after the third quarter. Going into the fourth quarter, that's when things shifted. As Brandon Aubrey added a field goal, a 52-yard field goal, to make the score 23-10 to where it was a 2-possession game. Then after that, you have CeeDee Lamb catching a 15-yard pass from old Dak for another conversion by CeeDee after that for a 2-point conversion as he scored the touchdown and the 2-point conversion to make it a 31-10 game to cap it to a 21-point lead, a 3 touchdown deficit the Commanders are facing at this point with only 10:32 left in the game. So think about it. You only have a little over 10 minutes left to score 3 touchdowns, and you've given the type of production you've given all game. You don't have like Tim Tebow magic on your offensive side to where you can come back. And even at that point, Tebow wasn't down 3 touchdowns, except for like the Super Bowl when the Falcons were up 28-3 over the Patriots, and in that historic deficit or downfall, we'll say, for the Falcons. Maybe at that point, we can say that we've seen it happen as they overcame a 25-point, deficit at that point, pretty much. The Patriots did, to come back and win 31-28 in the Super Bowl. That wasn't going to happen. Not with the way the Cowboys have played over the past couple of years, how they've been playing this year, and especially with the Commanders, down Montez Sweat, Chase Young. The franchise itself is not fully figured out, as the new ownership is basically just letting it play out for the most part. And the only reason why Jack Del Rio got let go, going back to the 1st and 10, the only reason why he got let go was because Ron Rivera requested that he be let go, that he be relieved of his duties. So when you think about that, ownership's letting this play out throughout this season. And then after the season, Ron will probably go. Other people will be relieved of their duties. They're going to staff the coaches the way they want to coach them, and not necessarily EB's guaranteed to get that opportunity either. So we could see Riverboat Ron handed his walking papers before the end of the year, but I doubt it. If he's got to go and request for Jack Del Rio to get relieved of his duties, I feel like this is one last-ditch effort for Riverboat Ron to show people that he can still, man a defense, that he can still run a defense. And if that's the case, then we could see a switch next year. I don't think so. And this would be like in a perfect world, right? Where Ron Rivera does a great job to finish this season out. They win the next 5 games, which they're not going to. But let's just say he does a great job as a defensive coordinator / head coach, to where he switches over from his head coaching post to running the defense next year. EB gets elevated to head coach, maybe brings in an offensive coordinator, but still does the play calling or whatnot throughout the game. Think about it. Could that work? In a perfect world, if Riverboat Ron can go back to running a defense like he did with the Chargers before he became the Carolina Panthers head coach, I think that would be a pretty sweet trade-off. But he would have to take the next 5 games to really show that he, one, could handle that, running a defense again, because, he's been a head coach, for now over a decade. But when you look back on it, when was the last time he really had full reins of the defense? Well, even though he's got some assistants helping him out throughout it, you heard the key words that those assistants are going to be assisting Riverboat Ron with the play calling duties. So if they assist him, that means that, in my opinion, he's making the calls. He's running the defense. So if we see a big switch in the play of the defense over the course of the next 5 games, who knows? Riverboat Ron could be back next year as defensive coordinator. We could see EB in the driver's seat to get the opportunity, because if I remember right, EB has a 2-year contract. So they could elevate him to head coach. Riverboat Ron, if willing, because there's been rumblings in the dark about him working in a front office position, not as the GM, but like somewhere up there, because he had a lot to do with the name change, the positive parts of the organization that we've seen, which hasn't been many, okay? But the positive parts of the organization, he's been a part of some things off the field. I want to kind of walk that back a little bit. Off the field. And he could still be someone who could be very valuable to the franchise, the organization, the players, or whatnot, okay? He's still pretty well, in my opinion, overall. Just like you, just like me, we all have our challenges out there in these streets, and he has challenges out there on that green. I'm trying to stay as positive as I possibly can because things just didn't look good last week, and they haven't looked good for a while, except for the beginning of the season when there was the hype about the new ownership. Well, yes, I was drinking that Kool-Aid too. I will admit it. You can go back and look at Mother, Father, and Kool-Aid. Okay. But now, as we come down off of that Kool-Aid, we're sitting to be a potential thing that we could see next year. Because when it comes to the Burgundy Flex review and it comes to the highlights, there's not really many highlights that I can say for this team right here, because you got to look at also when it went from 31-10 was where I left it off last time. You have Kevontae Turpin receiving a 34-yard pass from Dak Prescott to get another touchdown to make it 38-10. And then after that touchdown for 38-10, you had Deron Bland with a 63-yard interception returned for a touchdown, which took the score to 45-10. Of course, to try to save face and to do exactly what I just suggested would could potentially happen for next year if he's played his political cards right. He could be the defensive coordinator next year. Jack Del Rio gets ousted. He sticks around. He gets the opportunity to prove it now because in Riverboat Ron's mind, if I don't get the opportunity to make a change right now and to show my worth, at least on the defensive side of coaching, then I'm going to be out of the league. There's no other opportunity for me unless I showcase it right here, right now in these last 5 games, if he's given those last 5 games to participate in with the team. So when it comes to the Burgundy Flex review, when it comes to the highlights, there's none. There's no highlights for the Commanders, in my opinion, for this game. You got to look at Deron Bland's 63-yard interception return for the touchdown. That's a highlight. You got to look at Kevontae Turpin's 34-yard touchdown. That's a highlight. CeeDee Lamb's 15-yard touchdown with the 2-point conversion. Honorable mention. But if I were to say my third highlight of the game, I'd have to say Brandon Cook's 31-yard touchdown. That would be my top 3 highlights of the game. Brandon Cook's 31-yard touchdown, Kevontae Turpin's 34-yard touchdown for number 2. And number 1, we have the 63-yard interception for return touchdown in this game. That's who I'm picking as my highlights of the week. Let's look at the comments that we have right here. It looks like Mick said, what are the Commanders real commending? They definitely are not commanding whatsoever, Mick. To the point to where Riverboat Ron stepped up to Jack Del Rio and said this.
You're fired!
And maybe Jack Del Rio looked at him and said this.
Stop it. Get some help.
Riverboat Ron probably said this.
What?
And then questioned it one more time with another.
What?
Jack Del Rio probably said, you knew exactly what I was talking about, so let me go ahead and run it back.
Stop it. Get some help.
Riverboat Ron would come back with.
What?
Followed by a.
Yeah.
Jack Del Rio would come back with.
Stop it. Get some help.
And then Riverboat Ron may have, in that moment, said it one more time.
You're fired.
Followed by.
Now, that is absurd.
None of that happened, okay? That was just trying to bring 30 seconds of shenanigans into this show. With that being said, let's go ahead and take this into our first commercial break. And when we come back, we'll talk about our Soldiers of the Week. See here on the other side of this first commercial break.
Commanders, where my soldiers? Right side. Commanders, where my soldiers? Left side.
Football, and more football, you say? Well, tune in to Total Football Talk. Join your hosts, Drew Willingham.
You were playing like a dumpster Pelican quarterback.
And Cole Johnson.
It sets up a possible play action. Did you hear that, Dak Prescott?
As they take you through all the paces, both on the field and in the boardroom, of Total Football Talk. Every Tuesday, at
9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central.
exclusively on the SHOWSTOPPER Media and the Comey Media Incorporated YouTube channel.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, look. Hey, stop playing games. Y'all already know. Go ahead and toss him some Willie Bucks. Ain't nobody playing around. Hey, $ DWillie87. Go ahead and hit him up on the Cash App and go ahead and give him some Willie Bucks. Look at Drew looking stoic, ladies and gentlemen. Stoic on that $10 bill. So go ahead, slide my man over some Willie Bucks, and we good. That's all I'm saying. We good. How about some Willie Bucks?
SHOWSTOPPER Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
If you're looking for a sports program that gives you the flavor,
Washington Commanders? Really?
This whole thing stinks to high heaven.
that pulls no punches.
Thuggish act by a thuggish actor.
That gives you some humor.
Praise everything LeBron does and never criticize it.
If you want a show that gives you good times, then this is that show. BS3 Network proudly presents.
I am Cole Johnson, and welcome to
Cole Sports with a Z. Every Friday on Patreon and every Saturday on YouTube, Spreaker, and all other outlets.
Commanders, where my soldiers, right side. Commanders, where my soldiers, left side.
Welcome back from that commercial break. It is now time to take this into our Soldiers of the Week and see who we've got here for our top 3 soldiers in this week's episode.
Where my soldiers, right side. Commanders, where my soldiers, left side.
And of course, none of the soldiers of the week this week are either from the Commanders. When it comes to my soldiers of the week right here, I have to give it up to Dak Prescott, number 1, as he was 22 of 32 for 331 passing yards and 4 passing touchdowns. Dak has been stepping it up this year in different levels in different games, and I have to give him the nod as far as the number 1 soldier of the week. Then I have to give it to the receiver known as Brandon Cooks, 4 receptions, 72 yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. And one of his touchdowns were part of my Burgundy Flex Review highlights of the week. So it's another nod that I give to Brandon Cooks. And looking at Deron Bland, 7 tackles, 3 assists, 1 interception, and that interception was returned for that touchdown that I discussed for 63 yards to put the icing on the cake, as that added, from a 38-10 deficit to now a 45-10, taking it from 28-point deficit the Commanders were facing to a 35-point deficit. Have to give the nod to Deron Bland in this one right here. And that's who my 3 soldiers of the week are this week. With that being said, let's give it one more take.
Where my soldiers, right side. Commanders, where my soldiers, left side.
And how do you guys feel about that? Do you agree with my 3 picks as basically the MVPs of that Thanksgiving Day game? Let me know here in the comments, and I'll get back to you, whether it's while we're live or address it again at some point on the other social media platforms. With that being said, let's go ahead and take this into the showstopper and discuss what's on the slate for that segment.
I off the way that this sound, they turn up as soon as they feed the ground. I am not playing around. I hit them, I bet that they feeling me now.
And here for the showstopper, what adjustments should the team make to improve from week 12? And if you would have asked me this question after the Thanksgiving Day game, I would have told you, You need to fire Jack Del Rio. That would be what I would do. But unfortunately, that's not what you did in the day of. You did the next day. So when it came to what happened in fruition, you did it. You actually did it. Maybe you wanted him to enjoy the leftover turducken that was around. If the losing team actually got any turducken, I doubt it. But maybe you wanted to enjoy the little bit of Thanksgiving that he had left. Then you dropped the hammer, old Riverboat Ron. I don't know. But when it comes to this, all shenanigans aside, I've been saying it all year long. You need to provide better protection on that offensive line, and there's just not enough talent in that locker room that can fulfill that at this point of the year. And again, I'm thinking it's more along the lines of survive the next 5 games, get through the rest of the season. You have 5 games and a bye week along that stretch. You have 6 weeks left of this season. At this point, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a bumpy road for the rest of the year. You got to figure out if there's anybody else on that depth chart that you can utilize throughout the rest of this season. And if that's the case, then maybe we'll see if there's any type of progress throughout this season. And with Riverboat Ron calling the plays, maybe that could be one of the biggest adjustments that they needed to make going into these last 5 games. Who knows? Let me know here in the comments if you think they have to make any other bigger adjustments besides providing protection on that offensive line, and that defense needs to definitely make adjustments in how they're approaching. You can't just be playing man coverage all the time. I mean, you got to be definitely mixing some things up. It seemed like there wasn't enough mixing up in the game plan to where when Dak Prescott was coming up to the line, he was eating them up alive and switching things up. And, the Commanders would just stick with the same play. They wouldn't make any adjustments regularly. And that's what bit them pretty hard. So we'll see in this next game that we're about to talk about after this next commercial break, if they can get things together. And with that being said, Mick says, you are my MVP, Drew, because you are awesome. And with my spelling, you can kind of tell what I'm trying to say. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm picking up what you're throwing down, Mick, and I appreciate, of course, your participation in this show. And for those of you who are watching right now, make sure you click that like button, subscribe, share the show. I greatly appreciate it. Let's bring some more people in here. I know that I kind of had to adjust the time a little bit today. Got a lot going on, getting back from the Thanksgiving holidays. You got Cyber Monday going on right now as it's Monday. Black Friday was just a couple of days ago. I've been pretty active with the sales. If I haven't been prepping for the shows that I'm doing this week during the little bit of time that I have off, I've been Black Friday or Cyber Monday shopping, plus, spending time on Thanksgiving There's been a lot of stuff going on out here in my streets. I don't know about your streets, but hopefully you guys definitely, speaking of that, hopefully you guys did enjoy your Thanksgiving and you had, some fun on this Black Friday, Cyber Monday sales. It's not what it used to be, but I know there's some things out there that I wanted and or needed and things I wanted to share with others during the holidays that I was actually able to take advantage of the sales and do a pretty good job with it. So again, when it comes to this, the showstopper, when it comes to the adjustments that they need to make to improve, and thank you for sharing, Mick, I appreciate it. When it comes to the adjustments they need to make, looking at that offensive line, again, there's not much you can do between now and the last 6 weeks. I get it. With the overall core of the people that you have on both sides, offensive, defense, there's not much you can do. You can elevate some people from the practice squad. There's not much out there on the free agent market that you can do to really beef up either side, and especially with throwing together a game plan for the last 6 weeks of the season to get through 5 of those 6, because, again, you do have a bye week. So we'll see. We'll see if Riverboat Ron can bring some type of spark to that defense, can help elevate the offensive line, because Eric Bieniemy's doing a solid job as the offensive coordinator, in my opinion. He's working with the best of what he's got. Definitely making Sam Howell look like a pretty good quarterback, even though, in my opinion, he still looked pretty good in that Week 18 game last year against the Cowboys. And he has another opportunity to do that again on January 7th on my birthday for the final game of the year. So we'll see if I can get a birthday present with them at least sharing a loss to the Cowboys. And not sharing a loss meaning don't tie. I mean giving them a loss. I don't want them to have a tie for the last game of the year. That would be an absolute heartbreak. And now I got to find some wood. Knock on down here because I don't want that to happen. But we'll see. When it comes to the adjustments, let me know here in the comments what you guys think should happen for this upcoming Week 13 game and how they should improve from the Week 12 game. Let me know, and I can, get back talking about that after this next commercial break. I can acknowledge your comments. We shall see. When it comes to that, I'll see you on the other side, though, for our last commercial break.
Commanders, where my soldiers, right side, Commanders, where my soldiers, left side.
Everything Boston. I love you morons. You kids on the block, New Edition.
Dear whatever the law firm is. Sincerely, the U.S. Supreme Court.
Ben Affleck, Matt Damon. Go yourself again, Jason.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, look. Hey, stop playing games. Y'all already know. Go ahead and toss him some Willie Bucks. Ain't nobody playing around. Hey, $sign DWillie87. Go ahead and hit him up on the Cash App and go ahead and give him some Willie Bucks. Look at Drew looking stoic, ladies and gentlemen. Stoic on that $10 bill. So go ahead, slide my man over some Willie Bucks, and we good. That's all I'm saying. We good. How about some Willie Bucks?
Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Oh, yes. The tradition, the pageantry, the spectacle, the history, the slut. Wait. I gotta rep my brother's stuff right. All my DMV soldiers, stand up! And welcome to the Commanders Gridiron Report. You want your commanders to be repped right? Well, D. Willie is your man. Commanders Gridiron Report. Every Monday at 3:05 p.m. Eastern, 2:05 p.m. Central. Exclusively on the Sertoba Media YouTube channel. Music by J.KUL.
Where my soldiers, right side, Commanders, where my soldiers, left side.
Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Commanders, where my soldiers, right side, Commanders, where my soldiers, left side.
And welcome back from that commercial break. We are done with the commercials for the rest of the show. And we got a couple comments that we got to get to, but we will acknowledge those once we get to the opponent of the week.
Look how we step. Who we got next? Step on the right, step on the left. Who do we rep?
And here for the opponent of the week, we go from one great team. Well, I gotta say that loosely because, of course, we got the Eagles in the division and there's other teams in the NFL. We go from one decent team to another as the Miami Dolphins. Man, I don't know how I just butchered that one. Miami Dolphins come into town and take on the Washington Commanders. The 8-3 Miami Dolphins come to FedEx Field to take on the now 4-8 Commanders. I'm not going to sit here and tell you the Commanders are going to win this game. I highly doubt they're going to win this game. Based on how they played against the Cowboys, I can't even sit here and say they're going to be highly competitive. What I can say is I think we'll see a little bit of a closer game. They're not going to lose by 35 points. Given the fact that you got a Dolphins offense, I hope that sounded right because in my head it sounded like a Dolphins offense. I don't know. I'm giving myself a hard time now after that. I've just stumbled over a word upon the commercial break, but there's your shenanigans for this show. When it comes to this Dolphins offense, they have definitely been throwing some video game-like numbers, and especially when you got Tyreek Hill, who's been on pace to set the receiving yards record for this year. We only got 6 weeks left of football, and he still has plenty of time to not only break it, but set it. And inside 16 games before we even get to the extra 17th game. And he's been throwing those numbers down so that we could, unquestionably have the greatest wide receiver season of all time. That's what I'm seeing from afar. And when you're playing a defense like the Washington Commanders, you definitely have the chance to pad those numbers against a team that has definitely been not doing well overall on both. Well, mainly the defensive side, and this has been going on since before they made those trades, right? You were having decent play from those guys, but the overall team there, you can have 2 great players on the defense and the other 9 around you soil it overall because they've got, as far as the offense attacking the defense, they got 9 other options besides those 2 to move the ball around to try to penetrate those holes and get through and get the victory, okay? But when it comes to the overall stats for this defense, look, Cameron Curl is leading with 60 tackles right now. Even though he's not with the team anymore, Montez Sweat is still leading with 6.5 sacks on the Commanders. And then you got Kendall Fuller with 2 interceptions. I mean, those are your leading numbers. But when you look at the first downs that are being given up by the Commanders, their opponents have 236 first downs. When it comes to their 4th down conversions, they're 9 of 15 against the Commanders right here. I mean, these are not really good numbers. And you look at the total rushing yards, they're giving up nearly 1,400 yards already on the ground. Passing yards, nearly 3,200, in the air. They've given up 35 sacks as a whole. That number can't be right because Sam Howell has taken 55 sacks overall this year. Through just 12 games, the kid has taken 55 sacks. I'm surprised he hasn't gotten hurt at all. I mean, it's definitely been a rough year for Sam Howell, and he stayed strong, and through it all, the kid has definitely, in my opinion, proved that he is the quarterback of the future. He's thrown for nearly 3,400 passing yards, 66.5% complete, 486 attempts, 323 of those completed to give him that 66.5%. He's got 18 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. He's still in the positive. He's still +5 in that category there. Only throwing an interception 2.7% of the time. So when you look at that, he's doing very well with protecting the ball overall. His longest pass, 51 yards, and his quarterback rating is 87.3. So when you have numbers like that, in my opinion, he has proved that he is the quarterback of the future. And we've got a couple comments here. Melvin Turismo is or was in the house at one point. Says, "What's up, fellas?" That Willie Bucks commercial gets me every time. And he said that last week. So I added in those last few words because that's what you said before, Melvin. If you remember, because I do, because it started off with that Willie Bucks commercial. And it gets me every time is what you said. Kind of gets me too as I'm sitting back watching it during commercial break. Definitely a funny time and a funny thing to be a part of. And Mick says, "Hi, Melvin. How are you?" And Melvin, go ahead and respond to Mick. Guarantee he's probably going to ask you if you have Facebook. And from there, you guys can talk and mingle, whether it's during the show or outside of the show, on your own accord. Guys, that right there, when it comes to the opponent of the week, the Miami Dolphins take on the Commanders at 1:00 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday. Fingers crossed. I filled out for the credentials again, and I've been denied each time this year, but going to keep on trucking and see if we can get back in. Me, my team, those who are riding with as far as the ride or dies. Hopefully you guys can see some action on the interwebs this Sunday. Not getting my hopes up, but hey, at least I haven't given up, and I won't. I'm going to continue to keep on plugging away. Try to get in here as things have progressed throughout the past, few months, and definitely proud of that with Sartoba. But there's other entities that I would like to represent throughout that process. And hopefully, just hopefully, we can get back in and see the insides of FedEx Field and get some questions answered, as I have plenty of them, watching and seeing from afar how things have been going. Want to see it up close, and I have some questions up close in that moment. But we shall see, and I'll talk about it more here on the Final Drive.
We bet on ourselves, so what you expect? A die-hard fan never live with regret. Yes, sir.
And Ashley here with the Final Drive. There's not much more to say that I haven't already said within this show. I mean, my closing thoughts going into week 13 is this team got embarrassed last week on Thanksgiving. It's only been a few days. We still have 6 more days before the next game, but they got embarrassed. And hopefully that smack in the mouth would definitely wake them up to where they can look back on this and grow from it. There's been some growing pains throughout this year, and there's been some flashes of what this team can be in the future with the right leadership, with the right mindset. I don't know if Bill Belichick is the answer or not. I'm not feeling it. The more we get away from Tom Brady being in New England and what Bill Belichick has done since 2019 with that last year that he had with Tom Brady, this is 4 years now away from him. And the Patriots have been on a steep decline each and every year. And with the way things have been building in Washington as far as the flashes in the pan that we've seen of what could be potential greatness, I don't want him to come in here and potentially ruin what Sam Howell has started. And even though the rest of the team around him, especially on the offensive line, I'll say, hasn't played well, the receivers have done a pretty decent job. The running backs, I feel like, would do a better job if they had better protection. If Bill Belichick can come in here and bring the Patriot way as far as the culture with the pieces around him, if he can do that, then I say go for it. But we are still 6 weeks away from seeing anything like that start to unfold, and we're not going to see it right at 6 weeks. I don't feel like we're going to see that type of decision being announced until after the Super Bowl. We could see Riverboat Ron relieved of his duties, within the next 6 weeks. Well, by now, 6 weeks from today, it'll be, Monday. Well, I don't think there's a Monday game that week. So I think that by this point, it'll be the day after the regular season ends. If not, at least by Tuesday, 6 weeks from tomorrow, when we're officially through regular season games. It's not like we're going to see Riverboat Ron get canned and Bill Belichick get canned. If anything, we could see a potential trade from the New England Patriots to whatever of the 31 teams around want Bill Belichick's services. Because the last time we saw this, I believe, was when John Gruden was traded from the Raiders to the Buccaneers. And there was some first and second and third round picks, I believe, mixed in with that. I don't think that they're going to get a first round pick from the Commanders for Bill Belichick. I mean, especially when you look at his production over the past 4 seasons. Now, if this was 2020 and Tom Brady leaves and goes to Tampa Bay and Bill Belichick is like, I want out of here, even though we knew that was not going to happen. At that point, you probably would get a first-round pick or two with that trade because the year before that, 2018, they had just been to the Super Bowl and just won, okay? So, fresh off the 6th championship. Now that you are 4 years removed and Bill Belichick having another year on that contract, there's only 2 things that can happen. The Patriots release you. You sit at home and you get paid because you're still getting released within your contract. Or you sign with another team after that release, and you could sign for a little bit less than what the Patriots were going to pay you. And then the Patriots don't have to pay you because you signed with another team. Or, and hopefully your best interest there, oh, Billy, the Patriots trade you to whether it's the Commanders or whatever team that wants your services next year. And then, and only then in that moment, you will get your payday in that moment. And, if this was Bill Belichick, the coach 10 years ago, that seemed like it was more on the shoulders of him of how the Patriots were producing, I'd say go for it. Trade for the man. But look at the flashes of the pan we've seen from Eric Bieniemy. I don't think that it would be a wise decision to bring in Bill Belichick if you're going to keep Eric Bieniemy as the offensive coordinator. But I don't even know if that's going to be the case because if I remember right, Eric Bieniemy has a contract through next season as the offensive coordinator, and you would be cheaper and, in my opinion, wiser to go with a younger coach who's had recent success, more recent success since the Patriots won their last Super Bowl. The Eric Bieniemy has been a part of that Chiefs team that won 2 Super Bowls after the Patriots won their last Super Bowl. And he has been getting praise here and praise there for what he did there and has received some positive feedback for what he's done in Washington overall, as far as, the spark that he's given to Sam Howell and helped improve him and get him better. I think Eric Bieniemy deserves a first shot at as a head coach for the Commanders rather than bringing old Billy Belichick, who is now at this point turning into Billy Belichunk because he's chunking it up out there. I don't think that he is the best case scenario as the head coach for the Commanders. You tell me in the comments if you think that I'm right or wrong, and we'll acknowledge them right here. Hey, Playboy, I am not too late. No Constipated in Sin City, you are here. Thank you for joining in. And you look like a friend of mine, Tim Weisberg. He has a morning show in Massachusetts. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Oh, CISC. It's kind of easier to say CISC instead of Constipated in Sin City. I'm going to start saying CISC. Let me know in the comments if that is appropriate or not. And I might look like your friend there because I just shaved down the goatee to match the stubble of the beard that I got going on this face right here because it's that time of the year. It's the holidays. You got to start looking fresh. And I'm trying to look at the fresh I can out here on this street. Now, all jokes aside, back to the Commanders as I'm wrapping up the show and everything. I don't think Bill Belichick, again, is the greatest answer. I do think they made a good call with firing Jack Del Rio last Friday. That was a great Black Friday sale for the Commanders right there. Just kick him on out there. 60-year-old Jack Del Rio, who, in this, again, like I said earlier, I don't think he's going to be coaching anywhere else. Maybe as a defensive assistant, like most shunned defensive coordinators who are over the age of 60 usually go. Just looking back in stats, I mean, maybe Wade Phillips had an opportunity down the road because Wade Phillips, I think, was like 70 or 70, like early 70s when he won that Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos. Peyton Manning won on his last ride, as you would say. No, he said it was his last rodeo. Peyton Manning said that. So, all that being said, maybe I might be a little bit far-fetched with the whole Jack Del Rio situation, but, the success that Jack Del Rio has had in his league has not been based on Jack Del Rio up here. It's been the pieces around him. And the pieces around him in Washington, he didn't have strong enough to get by on that, and he was exposed. He was exposed at multiple times throughout when his key players would be injured. And then he'd have to go it alone. When you would have like Chase Young on injury and coming back, he would be getting mollywopped in certain situations. And the score might be tight, but the score would be tight because the offense would actually be putting up points and you would be giving up, more points than what the offense was putting up. So, yeah, you were able to mask it a little bit because the offense has gotten better and has improved over the years. So now there needs to be a little bit more of a tipping scale of balance. And with my final drive, I'm saying you did a great job in getting rid of one problem, okay? But you got more problems that you now have to address. And now you just have to survive the next 6 weeks. Are you going to the playoffs this year, Commanders and Commanders fans? No, you are not, okay? I would love to be sitting up here and saying there's still a chance. We still have a chance. There is still hope. We are going to the Super Bowl. It's not happening. I am being very realistic here. And even before the season even started, you can go back on Sartoba Media Airwaves, Team MBS, A7BN Sports, where the 13 episodes of this show are at. I have never once said this team is going to the Mother Father in the Super Bowl, or let alone destined for the playoffs. So they have a chance to go to the playoffs, a chance to make some noise. But what was one of the first things I said overall at the beginning of this season? I said that offensive line is going to cause issues. And this team will be lucky to finish the year 9-8. Now, with 5 games left in the season, you can't lose any more games if you're going to make my prediction, or at least my hopes, come true. You have to win out and win 5 straight games. And the Commanders, in order for you to do that, you have to beat the best offense in the NFL from what it looks like with the Miami Dolphins in the next game at home at 1 o'clock. Then you have to beat the dumpster Pelican LA Rams the next week. Well, 2 weeks after that, because you're finally on a bye after 13 straight games. But yeah, you have to beat those 2 teams. That's just 2 of them. That's just 2. That's 1 out of 3 weeks because you have the bye in between. Then you got to face the dumpster Pelican Jets. Now, if Aaron Rodgers isn't back, and they haven't made any improvements by then, and you're playing Trevor Siemian or Tim Boyle as a quarterback, you're going to get a win right there. Get excited about that, boy. You're getting excited about that win over there in New York. That's what I'm talking about. But you might have to face Aaron Rodgers. That could be Aaron Rodgers' tune-up game. That could be what he is eyeing on December 24th as his tune-up game, as he would only have to play the final 3 games of the season and only 2 more after that. Could you imagine Aaron Rodgers coming back on Christmas Eve for tune-up game against the Commanders that are getting commanded this year? Can you imagine that? I can. And I can imagine the Commanders getting mollywopped. So there, you have to look at those games right there. That's 3 straight games. And they could win one of those against the dumpster Pelican Rams, but they're not winning them all because they're going to lose the Dolphins. If they play the Jets' 18th string quarterback at that point, they're going to win that game too. So they might get 2 consecutive victories and finish the season 6-11. Congratulations, 6-11. You should be proud of that. Well, there's some positives you can find from that, but we'll talk about that once the season ends, okay? But when you look at it after that, they still have 2 other games after that. And who are those opponents? They happen to be the 49ers coming into town at the FedEx. And on top of that, you have to finish again at home against the Cowboys, okay? So there's your final 5 games. You might win one of those against the Rams because of how they played against the Seahawks not that long ago. I'm saying you could probably beat the Rams right now, okay? Especially if you're facing their backup quarterback, because Matthew Stafford. But when you look at the rest of this year, it's not looking good for the Commanders. As I've covered here in the final drive, don't want Bill Belichick. Reiterated from what I talked about at the beginning of the show, the Jack Del Rio. Great job firing him. And then right here, the remaining schedule of this season. You have to look at the fact that it ain't looking good for you, bro. It is not looking good whatsoever. And I know some of you are probably looking back and you're probably saying this.
Now, that is absurd.
But when it comes to this team right here, we need Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player of all time, to sit here and say this.
Stop it. Get some help.
Followed by old Bruce Willis coming in from the greatest Christmas movie of all time and saying this.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Because at least we got some type of positivity this week. At least Jack Del Rio heard these words.
You're fired.
What? Oh, I said Jack Del Rio heard these words.
You're fired.
What? And one last time.
You're fired.
One of you out there is probably saying true.
Would you please shut the hell up?
But I'm literally sitting here and saying this.
Let me talk to you.
Because I feel this way.
I think I got my swagger back. Oh.
Now!
Acknowledge me.
Ain't nobody care. Who cares? Ain't nobody care.
It's probably the real reaction I'm getting right now.
You can't handle the truth.
Followed by that. So, hey, guys, just having fun out here for the final drive. Thank you to those of you who have tuned in and come in towards the end of the show. I appreciate it. We got a few more comments we got to acknowledge before we get on out of here. What kind of fools would trade Belichick from New England? That's the best thing Patriots have going for them. Arguably so, arguably not their CISC. Definitely could be that way. As you say, it's fine to call me that. It's all good. I kind of like it. I kind of like breaking it down to CISC. So that's why I had to throw that out there. But hey, again, what kind of fools would trade Belichick from New England? There's been speculation about it throughout the NFL, throughout the media. I've had many conversations with many of my media colleagues on whether it's this show, Total Football Talk with Cole Johnson that we have on Tuesday mornings from 9 a.m. to noon, bing, on this channel right here for Showstopper Media and Comey Media. You can find that show 9 a.m. to noon on Tuesdays Eastern Time. 3 hours of awesomeness where we cover all 32 teams. But back to this right here. When it comes to trading Belichick from New England, it's very possible. You're looking at how they are producing this year. I mean, 2-8. 2-8 these Patriots were. Going into this game this past week, facing a Giants team losing 10-7, now 2-9. Are you tanking for Caleb Williams? Is that your pick right there? Because, the Panthers just fired Frank Reich, and their number one overall pick is going to the Bears. The Bears could potentially have not one, but two picks was inside of the top 5, let alone the top 10. If they keep winning or having some good games here, the Bears do, then they're not going to be picking twice within the top 5. And they know, and even though they still potentially can because they're 3-8, there's still 5 more games the rest of the season for them. So there's actually 6 because they've already had a bye week. So there's 6 more games for the Bears. They could potentially go on slight of a run. They're not going to make the playoffs, but they can at least, help see some other talent within them and evaluate the team around them and maybe, elevate themselves. But maybe they're trying to tank 2 to have 2 picks within the top 5. And let me ask you a question. When was the last time you knew of a team that had 2 picks inside the top 5, let alone potentially the top 3 of the draft? The Bears could have that luxury this year. And we'll talk more about that on Total Football Talk tomorrow because I'm going to ask Cole. That's going to be one of my questions that I asked Cole about. And I've already asked it to him before, but I've got another part 2 part of that. It's going to be like, Cole, remember when I asked you this a couple weeks ago? Well, what about X? And I'm going to save that secret question for tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., probably around 10:30, because I'm not going to ask him right to start off the show. Maybe 10:30, maybe 11:45. You'll have to tune in tomorrow between 9 a.m., noon, and find out when I ask that question and what Cole says for his response. Next question or next statement that we have here is maybe they will tank for drafting position. Absolutely. And I just reiterated that, CISC, so we will see what that is. My man Sick Diggy is in the house, says, what's good? Well, for that, I will give you this.
Acknowledge me.
Sick has actually been on a show with me, which I've showed you commercials of so far at the commercial breaks, but I've only showed this commercial once out of all the shows. I haven't shown it on this episode today, as I just created it about a week ago. But check out a show that Sick Diggy was on with in this 1-minute commercial of a show that I have on Thursday nights. It's a comedy show. If you thought the shenanigans were great in this show, check this motherfather out. This little right here. Look at the inside of these cakes. Now, when you bite into it, just as I demonstrated while you were talking at the beginning of your discussion right there, I could taste the drugs inside of this cake, Sick. I could taste the addiction within the cream filling of this cake right here, to where they not only just with that cake right there, but they made an ice cream out of it. They made an ice cream out of it. A 1-pint Christmas tree cake ice cream. Look at that little just smile up there. Look, she is up to no good on there. Look at that. Look at that smile on there, Sick. She knows that she got you. Got him is what's in her mind right now.
Acknowledge me.
Look at that little smile right there. She's up to no good.
D. Willie in the evening. Thursdays at 11:15 p.m. Eastern, 10:15 p.m. Central. Exclusively on Showstopper Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
So what you guys think of that? Check that out Thursday nights, 11:15 p.m. Eastern, as that was from 2 weeks ago on episode 8. We had episode 9 last week, the Thanksgiving special. And this Thursday is actually going to be called Stu Shot Homeboys Pool. Yes, somebody had a firearm and shot another person's pool. I will get into that this Thursday as we are live at 11:15 p.m. Eastern time on Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome. Now, as we are here for the closing thoughts, I want to thank you all again for participating in this show. For those of you, and Six says, what in the type 2 diabetes? And yes, he was on that show as well. This week I will be solo. As I've got a shorter episode, but it's definitely going to be pretty interesting for the things that I have to say, that I've got planned to say. At least you never know, it could always go off the rails. We'll see. You'll have to see when it comes to this episode this week. But I think Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the GOAT when it comes to basketball. Okay, and there's many people out there that will probably say otherwise. You will never, ever hear me say that LeBron James is the greatest of all time. Now, you heard me say Michael Jordan is, in my opinion, the greatest of all time. And, you know, a lot of people out there feel the same way when it comes to that. And for you to say Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, that kind of tells me you've been watching basketball even longer. And with what Kareem Abdul-Jabbar meant to the game of basketball, I'm not even going to argue that. I'll argue LeBron and Jordan all day long, but I'm not going to argue against Kareem because Kareem was big for 2 franchises. He spent most of his time again with the Showtime Lakers and is known prominently more for what he did in the 80s before he retired at the end of the 80s. I want to say he played from 80 played until the 88-89 season and retired then. Let me know in the comments if I'm right about that. I know football and baseball more than basketball, but basketball is my number 3 covered sport. So I think Kareem retired after the 88-89 season. Yeah, I'm pretty. I will put money on that. Let me know in the comments if I'm going to lose money to that, or would have lost if I would have put money on it. But when it comes to Kareem and Jordan, yeah, definitely deserve to be called the GOAT over top of LeBron, in my opinion. Great throw out there, CISC. I like that. The Raiders should get Gruden back, as you reiterated that in the next comment. It's going to be tough. You know, Gruden's been fighting to clear his name somewhat based on the way that he was ousted out of the NFL. And I'm not excusing what he said because there were some messed up things he said within those emails. You know, privacy parts, I guess, were violated there, but still, you know, if you're going to say that stuff in the email, and if that stuff is actually true, that the context of the words that came out, I don't know if you need that leading a football team or not. You know, times have changed a lot over the past 20 years to where, you know, you might be able to get away with that kind of stuff back then. I don't condone it, talking about other nationalities like that and speaking down on others, and talking behind other people's backs. You know, of course, people in certain positions had to put on different hats, you know, to survive out there in these streets. But genuinely, like, some of the things that he said in the context of those emails, I wouldn't invite that back. I mean, he may have learned his lesson to not say it through email anymore, but I don't trust that type of mindset in the locker room or anything. And plus, you're going to have so many people out there that are going to feel the same way. So to try to stay away from the animosity, there's only 32 teams in the NFL. Let him work in the XFL. Give him a chance to prove himself first. Don't give him a job straight away in the NFL being a head coach. Yeah, he won a Super Bowl, but he won the Super Bowl with Tony Dungy's team that he put together. And it took Tony Dungy another 5 years to get the Super Bowl in Indianapolis, because even though Jim Mora had established something in Indianapolis before he got there, there were still other moving parts that Tony Dungy had to be a part of and help, you know, make that team better and bring his style of play and coaching into that team's philosophy. So he had to change things up. John Gruden, had changed some philosophy up with Tampa Bay and bring some things over from Oakland, but it wasn't that big of a change. he basically stuck with a lot of Tony Dungy's culture that he had built within that team over the few years that he was there. Or, well, I think Tony Dungy was there like 5 or 6 years before he was relieved of his duties, something like that. But yeah, around that time, you have to look at that as John Gruden took over somebody else's team and had success with it. Just like Bill Callahan, who was his assistant, took over as head coach for the Raiders, and they faced each other in that Super Bowl to where John Gruden beat his old team that was still running the same scheme that he ran. And John Gruden only whooped down on him as bad because he knew what the other team was calling when they called it. He could see it and call audibles, okay, and have options for the quarterback going into it. And you won with Brad Johnson. I rest my case, okay? Now, 6 says strategic tanking, well, stranger, shadier things have happened. Yes, they definitely could. Texans, when they drafted Andre Williams, as far as, the Texans had multiple picks in the top 5. Let me know, because even when I talked about this with Cole Johnson not that long ago, he's a Texans fan. So I feel like he would know if when the Texans drafted Andre Williams, if they had 2 picks within the top 5. Or you might be commenting along the lines of when I said that they had picks in the top 2 in the top 10. I'm more so focused down more on 2 picks in the top 5. What do you think, CISC? Let me know other than that. My friend Tim Weisberg does a lot of paranormal topics. He has been to the Lizzie Borden house. Okay. I am not really – I've seen some paranormal things, but I'm not really that familiar with paranormal activity or have watched enough on TV to really comment on that. But, hey, if he's having fun, making an impact there, go ahead and play around with those ghosts all you want to, my man. I definitely will not throw any shade on that. I think that's pretty cool. Wilt versus Bill, Wilt versus Kareem, great rivalries there. Bill Walton and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar heading up against Wilt Chamberlain. Yeah, I would say those were good ones and things we've seen on Sports Century and in other documentaries back in the past. I'd have to agree with that too. Now, Bill Walton is not the greatest of all time, sick. They're great rivalries there. And Wilt deserves to be in the conversation of those up there as the greatest athletes to ever play the game of basketball in the NBA. And definitely it was part of change during that time frame. Civil rights, he's part of all that stuff. Wilt Chamberlain playing basketball during those times. Or Bill Russell is who you're probably talking about, not Bill Walton. I don't know why I thought about Bill Walton, but yeah, Bill Russell, the amount of championships they have there with the Celtics, I would definitely say I would agree with that more so. I was at the game when he became the all-time scoring champion in 1984, and he still played for another 4 seasons after that. Well, probably 5 if he played the 88 to 89 season. So, yeah, we've definitely shifted from football to basketball here, but I'm loving the shift here in the comments. Actually, it was the 89-90 when Kareem retired. He played until 1990? He played until 1990. I don't recall that. But again, I was still barely out of Huggies at that point, as I was only 3 years old in 1990. So I can't say that my memory goes back that far. I am not a robot. He Chan. Not sure what that means, but we'll roll with it, CISC. Gruden was set up. Gruden was set up how? Did somebody else get on his computer? Let me tell you this. We'll talk about setup, okay? The emails came from his email. So the only other way he could be set up without being hacked is if the McDummy left his computer up without pressing Windows L for Windows lock to lock his computer up while I was in his office. Somebody was feeling some type of way that day. It came up there and, on the keyboard and sent some emails. Well, too bad that these emails, when they brought the report out, stretched over time. It wasn't just like it was one on one day. You think that John Gruden just left his computer open all day, every day, or at night to where the janitor could come in, see the trash needed to be dumped? I hate dumping this man's trash, so I'm going to mess with him. Do you think that John Gruden never looked at his outbox or his sent mail? Okay, if you're a real shady person who was the janitor coming in and hacking into those emails and saying stuff, then you can be pressing delete as you send it. But then Bruce Allen was responding to the emails. They were having dialogue back and forth. So was Gruden set up as far as the information maybe, was leaked by Dan Snyder to the NFL? Yeah, possibly. But to me, that's not being set up. You set yourself up by talking in that context. You set yourself up by having that mindset, for one, and being a leader amongst people. And that's where my definitive case comes there when it comes to Gruden and how he acted throughout this. That's not appropriate behavior. I can't really condone what he did. Let me know more how he was set up and if I'm completely off the rails wrong with this. Would you fire Bear Bryant? He was old school racist. I would rather know from Jump Street that you're racist. I can respect that. No, I mean, as far as would you fire him for being a racist? I mean, in today's society, you can't have that. So if that's your mindset, I mean, I was raised different, so I haven't been a racist jump. So if you think about it, outside of that, only if someone, I guess, is a racist and lives within those lines would probably condone it. It's hard to really say that now because Bear Bryant, known as a racist and coming in to apply for a job today as a racist, would not get a job, period. Like if he was applying for a job and was known as being a racist, yeah. But a lot of the things that you just brought out about Bear Bryant, it wasn't really well publicized until after he died. It wasn't like it was out there, Bear Bryant the racist just led his team to a championship. No, it's not like that. Like the documentaries that came out and so forth, and the power of the internet and the knowledge at our fingertips, more people are well educated in that now than they were back then. Okay, people that lived in that area or really followed that team may have more of an understanding of how Bear Bryant was at that time, but nowadays you only know if you're on the other side of the world based on the internet, in my opinion. That's how I feel about that. Dungy joined the Buccaneers in 97. Okay, so he was the coach there for 5 seasons. 97, 98, 99, 2000, 2001. Yeah, so for 5 seasons, he was the coach and had established something pretty well over there. So, yeah, Sick, I appreciate you helping me out. I was going to say 96 or so I was about a year off, but still 5 seasons. He established something pretty well. John Gruden came in his first year, won a Super Bowl. Come on. You're using somebody else's team. You didn't really make many changes coming into that except for maybe Brad Johnson. So, and that's not a big enough change to create a Super Bowl team. It was that defense and what Tony Dungy established with that defense that got them to that point, because Tony Dungy was a defensive player back in the day, if you remember. And I don't need to go any more further than that because you have Google to remind you of that. Having multiple draft picks in the top 7. Okay, so going back to the Texans, that's what they had when they got Andre Williams, but not in the top 5. So I feel like this was something that, if it does happen, it'll be pretty historic and it'll be interesting to see. I mean, Bill Russell at Drew Willingham, yes. As I was talking about it, I kind of corrected myself, thinking about it back as I was talking about it. So, yeah, I see what you're saying there, Sick. Especially since Bill Russell was playing in Boston. Yeah, exactly. And what he did during the championship runs there. The most impressive thing about Wilt was his I'm not gonna respond on that because of the platforms we're on. Those emails were searched for. They were looking for something dirty. He made the Raiders something to watch and being a money-making machine. Okay. So he made the Raiders into something to watch. I'll give you that. Being a money-making machine, I'll give you that too. Whether it's for his own self or for the team, I'll give you that. They were looking for something dirty. Well, they found it. And for what he said in context and what was leaked, in my opinion, for that, he deserves to be fired for that. Now, am I saying that he doesn't deserve another opportunity in the NFL? No. Like, I feel like at some point, Maybe. And it's, I guess you could say, well, you just said the same thing about Bear Bryant. Well, they were different times. And from what I know about Bear Bryant, he was on a completely different level than John Gruden. And yeah, John Gruden slipped up and said some things in emails, and they're not appropriate. But the difference between back when Bear Bryant was around and now is there's counseling, okay? There's more things to do for philanthropy, okay, to kind of restore your name out there, ways to give back to the community. There's more ways now than there were back in the day when Bear Bryant was around. So there's more ways for him to rehabilitate himself, truly learn and grow, okay? And he can, okay? I'm not saying that that's not possible, but do I think that he deserves to go back to the Raiders? I don't think so. I think that he needs to start somewhere else and maybe be an offensive coordinator or something before he comes back as being a head coach to prove to everyone, higher ups and lower or whatnot on the totem pole, that he can do what is necessary to be part of a team, uplift people, and has truly learned from his ways. We'll see. I have been black most of my life. Most of your life. Well, what happened to the other part of it? Let me know. I mean, that's a good question. Was he blatant with his racism? As far as in public or in context through the emails? I mean, you guys can go back, look on the internet and read for yourself. I've read it, and I'm not repeating the context of what he said in there, but to my opinion, I feel like he was. But it was hidden within emails between him and other members of the managing, department within the Commanders, then at that time formerly known as the Redskins. Okay, so that in itself, definitely with what he was saying in the context of the emails, yeah, I guess you could say that. Was he in public saying it or on the microphone? Or no, but whether it's in front of people out in the open or if it's closeted, you still did a wrong thing there, in my opinion. I remember the infamous Jimmy the Greek interview in which he was accused of being a racist, despite what he said was accurate, but wasn't articulated right. That's a very, very valid statement. Very valid statement. And for that, you definitely, you win that one. But this is Jimmy the Greek, and this is not John Gruden. So change my mind out there in the comments. When Dungy joined the Buccaneers in 97, everything had to change, including their logos, colors, uniforms, attitude, and playing style. And they kept up with that culture change even when John Gruden was there because, again, John Gruden didn't change hardly anything at all, maybe offensively, but the defense, the culture, and the overall culture of the team remained the same. He made Forrest Gump an All-American. Come on, man. That was a movie. CISC, come on now. I will share it with you in private. Okay. We'll definitely do that. You can hit me up on the social media platforms where my name, Drew Willingham, here in this is. You can reach out to me on Facebook. You can reach out to me on Instagram at the.real.d.willie. Okay. Or you can reach out to me as the Real D Will on Twitter. Or you can just search my name and this face, like in that bottom corner over there, is going to pop up no matter what you're searching for. Guys, this show is definitely take on a life of its own and last a little bit longer than I anticipated, but that's okay. I appreciate you guys and the participation. That's the $1 million question. Can a person be redeemed or have redeemable qualities? And, in the world where we like to give second chances, where we like to say everyone deserves a second chance, if that was their first big mistake, then, if they've proven that they've grown from the situation and have learned from it, I feel like everybody does deserve some type of second chance. But does that mean it's the same level of where they were at before? No, because you don't give them the real chance to prove themselves, to build themselves back up. If John Gruden goes somewhere as an offensive coordinator and has success, but also maintains his behavior and proves that he is of the John Gruden that we thought he was before all this stuff was leaked out, then that's a different situation. And then I feel like he's redeemed himself at that point. But if you just throw him in there as a head coach and then he has the problems or those problems leak back out to what we saw before, he didn't really give him a true, honest chance at redeeming himself in that case, in my opinion. Wouldn't you say? I mean, that's just how I feel about it. You have to not only grow on the outside, but you should grow within your organization or career, however you want to sum it up. That's how I feel about that. Cosell talked about little monkeys. Are you related to Drew Brees? No, I am not. That's just that we both have the same first name. Guys, you guys have definitely brought some interesting context through in this show, and we went way longer than anticipated because of the great context you were throwing out there. And for that, I thank you for watching episode 13 of the Commanders Gridiron Report. I've had a lot of fun with you guys here today. I want to thank Mickey Delaney for starting the show out with me. Here in the comments says there was only one person watching for a little bit, and that was Mick. Mick was sharing it. And Mick, you helped out in part of this episode. I have to give you credit within that. So thank you for tuning in first and getting this thing started. Shout out to Sick Dicky and CISC for keeping the comments going as well. Definitely means a lot to me to have some participation throughout the show because I get hype when that happens.
Yeah.
To the point to where if there was a crowd in my house right now, they'll be doing this. I'm going to follow it up with
Let me talk to you.
And this.
What?
Because you need to understand that we're just trying to have some fun out here on these streams, and I couldn't do it without the rest of you who would like to participate in the comments. And one last comment I will share. Like the owner of the Clippers was set up by a disgruntled wrench, and they took his team from him. That's another debatable statement we could have for another day. We'll save that potentially for a non-football related show because this is football. So again, I'm going to finish this up with saying, guys, thank you as always for tuning in. I greatly appreciate the participation. I've only got one more thing left to say to you before we look at one badass outro, is that everyone, please, as always, stay safe out here in these streets.
Who do we rep? Commanders. Where my soldiers? Right side. Commanders. Where my soldiers? Left side. Commanders. Where my soldiers? Watch the middle. Commanders. Where my soldiers? Now we step. Where my soldiers? Right side. Commanders. We rep. Where my soldiers? Left side. Now we step. Where my soldiers? Watch the middle. Command we red, where my soldiers can't hit 'em.
Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.